thank you for joining us. My name is Lawrence Lang, and today I've travelled to Leicester to spend some time with Michelle Shipley. Michelle, you joined the chorus of the D'Oyly Carte Opera Company towards the end of its life in the 1970s, and for the 6 months between September 1980 and February 1981, when you left the company, you also played the part of Celia in Iolanthe. From what I understand, you were the youngest person ever to have joined, being only 16 at the time. I assume that you joined straight from school.
I did. There is a funny story with that, but yes, I did leave straight from school. In fact, I left school to join the company.
All right.
I could have stayed on, but chose not to.
Right. So, how much did you know about Gilbert & Sullivan before you left school and joined the D'Oyly Carte?
Not that much, really. We were doing a production of The Gondoliers at school, and I was playing Fiammetta, or as I was nicknamed, Flaminetta. And we went to Sadler's Wells and we saw the D'Oyly Carte. And it was one of my best friends said to me, "Oh, you can sing like that. Why don't you audition?" Well, that was the bee in the bonnet then, wasn't it? So I went home and wrote the most ridiculous letter, really, exaggerating the fact or overemphasising the fact that I was 18. Sort of, my name is Michelle Shipley and I'm 18 years old, which of course I wasn't. I would like to audition for your company, because I'm sure, as you know, everywhere they went, they would audition. The first audition that was coming up, the nearest would be London.
Right.
But that wasn't coming through soon enough for me. So after I hadn't heard from them for about 3 weeks, I rang them up and asked. They said, "Oh yes, you are on the list." And they said when this was. And I said, haven't you got anything sooner? And they said,
time to get into the dentist, isn't it?
So they said Manchester, which in those days wasn't as easy as it is now. It was 3 trains. So I said, yes, that'll be absolutely fine.
So where were you living?
I was living in Leicester.
Right. Yep.
And so the day that I had my audition, I went as though I was going to school. And inside my school bag, I hadn't told my mum, because I knew I'd get in a lot of trouble if I did. I had my dress that I was changing into, my shoes, and my music scores with me. My singing teacher had an idea but didn't really know. And then I had another family member that did know. And I went off as if I was going to school. But I didn't. I caught the bus and went to the train station and caught the 3 trains and went to Manchester Opera House.
Wow.
And then my audition was quite something. And then eventually rang my mum to say, "I'll be leaving home because I have got into the D'Oyly Carte." And that, as far as I was concerned with school, was the end of school.
Right. So just thinking back to the audition, what was your audition piece or pieces?
Well, in again, they liked you to perform something that obviously is Gilbert & Sullivan. And remember, I was very young, so being very young, I was a little bit, I'm trying to use the word, stubborn in my ways, a little bit like, stubborn teenager. So I'm not going to sing what they hear day in and day out so that they can judge me with, their top soprano. So I chose something similar. So I chose I Love All Graceful Things by Eric Tiemann and Charming Chloe by Edward German. So again, it's got the tripping type sounds, the patter type sounds in there, the clarity of the words. And that's what I chose to sing. So they allowed me to sing the first one, which was Charming Chloe.
Right.
And then they asked if I would sing I Love All Graceful Things as well, which I did. And in the wings stood Alistair Donkin, who at the time obviously I didn't know. And they said they were very interested, but obviously they'd got auditions they were still auditioning. And as I've already said, being a forceful teenager, if only I could have that in my life these days, I said, "Well, I'm ever so sorry, I have another position that is open to me, and I have to let them know today. I told them that I was holding out for this audition.
What a rebel.
I know. And poor old Alistair, who was all geared up at the time, ready to go on, had to wait because they said, well, could you go back into the wings while we have a chat? And I went back into the wings. Thing is, at that age, you have nothing to lose, do you?
No.
And I was seeing a boyfriend at the time who'd said to me he couldn't believe the cheek of me. And now, thinking back, no, I wouldn't be able to do that now. Anyway, then they called me back and they said, yes, we'd be pleased to take you in our company.
Wow. So who was on the panel?
I'm trying to remember now. I think David Mackey was there, definitely. And I'm trying to remember who our musical director was at the time.
Because Royston had left. Fraser Golding?
Yes, Fraser Golding was there. Yes, definitely. But it was lovely, and it was a lovely audition. What I would do for that now.
Yes.
But yes, so I went, and then I had to telephone my mum who was at work. So I found the little coin telephone box at the kiosk. Yes,
because no one had mobiles in
no
those
mobiles,
days, did they?
no, thank goodness, because she would have got hold of me. So I'd just gone off to school. So the first thing I did was phone my singing teacher, Thora Kybert, sadly no longer with us, told her, and then I rang my mum at work. And if I'm right in remembering, my mum's exact words were, "You wait until you get home." So it was a long three train journeys home. But fortunately, that gave my mum lots of time to talk to a lot of people who then, and also my singing teacher, who then talked my mum round to realise the enormity of what had just happened. So I didn't get told off when I got home.
No, because I was going to ask you, sort of how your family felt about you sort of going into it. That it must have been initially a massive shock.
Yes.
And annoyance.
yes, it was a massive shock, and I wasn't going to go back to school. I wasn't enjoying school. I liked the school before the one I was at, but you could only really study music if you were in the A band. I was in the B band, although I was doing the gondoliers as Flaminetta. But apart from that, I wasn't enjoying it, and all I'd ever wanted to do was to go into the theatre from quite a young age. So I went to work for a friend in a record shop where I worked on a Saturday and did that full time to get a little bit of money to take away with me. And then that was the start.
So how long was the period between the audition and you actually joining them?
I left school round about the Easter time, so it was about Easter-ish time, if I remember rightly. And then I joined when I went down before I needed to, because we were starting, as you know, so we would do rehearsal September. We'd do a month's worth of rehearsal. It was very intensive.
Yes.
Very intensive. And of course I didn't read music, which of course I didn't tell them. So everything was by ear. So I literally had to have all the recordings and listen to them every night so that I could learn it that way. But I went quite early. I went probably about June time. And I went and worked as a Girl Friday for an insurance company to build up some money as well before I went away. Because it was literally, right, that's it. I've got this job, I'm off.
Yes. When you joined the company, were you aware that the writing was on the wall and that there was only a few more years of life in the D'Oyly Carte?
Not at all. No. Sadly, no. Not at all.
So when you joined, did you think that the cart might have been a career for life?
Possibly. I think because of my age, I think at the age that I was, you didn't sort of look beyond the one day.
Ahead,
no,
really,
you don't.
No.
No, you sort of one day after another, really. And it was, like I say, to get into such a prestigious company at such an early age was such a privilege. But it's not until years later that I realise and accept what a privilege it was.
What was it like being with such an established company that was touring for 48 weeks a year at such a young age? Did the company sort of take you under their wing and protect you, or did you really just have to get on with it?
Yes, they did. They did protect. You all sort of had your own groups of friends. I think I celebrated my 18th birthday at least twice, possibly 3 times, because every year I would say I'd turned 18 when I hadn't. And on my actual 18th, they all ignored me. We were in Scotland at the time, and they all ignored me until the interval of the second production of The Mikado. I remember that very, very well, because even my best friend hadn't said happy birthday to me, but they'd actually been baking my cake. Every place that they'd gone in Scotland, they'd either baked the cake and then they'd marzipanned it and then they'd iced it. And then it was announced that everybody knew exactly how old I was because the Leicester Mercury had kindly put it into the newspaper. And Jane Stanford was, of course, from the same singing teacher as myself and from Leicester. So, of course, everybody knew. So it's just as well I had behaved myself. But yes, so you'd had certain people, and I had a lovely friend as well, Clive Birch, who's now in Australia. And he would tour with us, and we'd stay together. And I'd stay with Pam and quite often with Bruce as well, Bruce Graham, and we'd travel together. So they'd keep their eye that I wasn't having too much to drink and that I was behaving. And landladies were very possessive and very protective over you as well. I remember being in Scotland again. And of course, I was of the age where you didn't feel the cold. So I'd wear to go out in an evening, sort of satin trousers were the thing in those days. And sort of not very much on top, certainly not a jacket. And I had a lovely lady in Scotland who crocheted me a jumper to wear and a hat. They didn't match colour-wise, but they kept me warm. Very protective over the fact of, keep warm, you must keep wrapped up because of your voice, etc. I remember Celia as well. When I first played Celia, Clive Birch taking me for a wonderful walk. I think we were in Inverness, and we walked through the woods, and he just took me for this lovely walk just to keep me calm on the first day of playing Celia. I remember that very well.
You touched there on landladies.
Yeah.
It was probably towards the end of the time for the theatrical landladies, in the sort of late 70s, 80s, but I'm sure you must have some theatrical landlady tales or living in digs that you can
Oh, definitely. Sunderland,
us.
One of the first places. I think the first place that we went to, or that I went to, was Southsea. And I recently went there with my younger son to show him. And took some photographs the same as I had on the first day that I went there all those years ago. But Sunderland, we always stayed at the same place. And the landlady there used to have a lot of club acts there as well. So they would come in later than us, and they'd be sat at the tables to have their breakfast, and the egg used to chase the sausage around the plate. And then when we went back the next year, the rooms were smaller. And sometimes, if the landlady had somebody else coming in, you might come back and find that all your things were moved into a different room, which would not go on in these days. But then, like I say, the second year I went back, all the rooms were much smaller because obviously she was making more profit by having more rooms. Some were good, some digs were good, some not so good. We like to save money, so obviously we've got a subsistence, so we don't want to blow all that subsistence if we can help it. Blackpool in November, of course. I remember a time that Pam and myself put 50p pieces in, and we discovered if we put the 50p pieces in a certain way, they'd fall out again. And I remember being so young at the time that when I saw some police near to the theatre, I was convinced that they were after me for my 50p pieces. So yes, I remember that. I remember in Blackpool as well, November, it was so cold, and there were bunk beds as well. and going to bed wearing sort of leggings and a leotard as well, and then clothes on top, and then a scarf and a hat, and burning myself with a hot water bottle because I'd made it so hot, and then clung hold of it through the night because it was freezing cold. But that aside, it was such good fun. It certainly taught me how to pack very quickly.
Yes.
And I used to always, I was a real sucker, I still am, for getting makeup that had a free offer. So if it was something like Clinique, and then we were only supposed to have one suitcase, because they on a Saturday night, and they'd be left on the stage, which I'm sure you've heard before, and everything would be collected. And then you just take your weekend things. But I sort of used to stretch that a little bit further, because I'd always have so many lotions and potions, and because of the age I was, I had no responsibilities.
No.
Everybody had very nice presents in my family. They used to look forward to me coming home. So what's Michelle bringing home now? My niece, Sarah, I used to bring her lots of nice things home.
You've sort of touched on your parents and family a couple of times. So you've talked to me about their, should we say, upset when you first joined the company. But how did they react, and how did they feel to the fact that, okay, you were in the company, but you're actually touring round and you were on the road for 48 weeks a year? So as well as you going into the company, you weren't going to be around to be seen.
Mixed reactions, I think. I have two brothers as well, two older brothers, one that's 14 years older. He was the person that actually paid for my first singing lessons.
Right.
And so he was absolutely always been very, very supportive. My other brother as well, supportive. But the family didn't really, I think, understand the enormity of what I was doing. My mum would come and see me at Sadler's Wells. And then when I went on to do other things as well. But it wasn't until actually coming and visiting that they realised nobody else in the family had done that. Nobody had gone away and done that at all. So, and I don't think the thought of where I actually was, really hit home. Although I used to send home, you used to be able to get car stickers as well from the D'Oyly Carte, so I used to send those home, and I used to send postcards home, and I know my mum kept them all because I have her scrapbook now, which is where some of the photographs that we mentioned before, where they've come from. So my mum I'd send a postcard saying I'm now at Southsea, or I'd send another one of Sunderland or whatever, and so she would put those in a scrapbook, and Michelle in Sunderland, Michelle in Southsea. So, but I think they didn't realise the extent that we really did travel. I think they didn't sort of put together one day we might be in Nottingham, for example, but then the next week we might be in Southsea or somewhere else, Norwich.
Did the family enjoy Gilbert and Sullivan, or was it sort of alien to them?
Alien to them as well. Yeah, totally alien to them.
Yeah.
In fact, I've now got a little grandson, and I introduced him to Pirates of Penzance the other day. If anyone's going to follow the footsteps, I think that little one will. And he sat down and was absolutely besotted with it. So,
lovely.
Yeah.
Very good. When we were talking a little bit earlier, you mentioned a fear of cats and sort of some of the impact that landladies with cats had on you. Can you?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where it was. I've got a feeling it might have been Norwich. Oh no, sorry, it was Cardiff. We called her the Mad Cat Lady. She had about 8 cats. Now I had such a bad fear of cats that if I was walking outside and a cat was across the road or on the same side of the road as myself, I would cross the road. And the feeling is that where your mouth goes really dry, and I was just petrified. Yeah. I'd never had pets anyway as a child, and my mum would always tell me not to go near cats because they might scratch me. And obviously a lot of these landladies had cats and they had dogs. But this one particular time in Cardiff, I'd overslept, so it was a day when we didn't have a matinee, and everybody that I was staying with, nobody was in. I woke up and I was on my own, and I wanted to use the bathroom. And all I remember is going to the door to go and open the door, and the sound of 8 cats meowing. So I'm looking through the keyhole and trying to find something that I could use, because I was not coming out of that bedroom. And it was about 4 o'clock before somebody came in. I was so petrified. But it was one of our lovely dear members, Peggy Ann Jones, that said, you've got to get over this fear of cats. And I said, well, I am just terrified. And her advice to me was, when we were then at Sadler's Wells, there used to be a market, and there was a pet shop in the market. And she said, go and get yourself a kitten. You can't possibly be scared of a kitten. So sure enough, I did. They got some kittens in there, and they got this lovely black kitten with a little tiny white speck on his chest. I called him Pushkin after the Russian poet, and he was just gorgeous. So I took him back, obviously, to the theatre for that night, and then I took him home. And from that very day to this day, I've never been without a cat, ever, or cats.
Friends for life.
Friends for life. And I thank every day for Peggy giving me that advice. I'm sure some of my family sometimes think they wish she hadn't, because I've always got cats. Yeah, and then I progressed on to dogs as well, so cats and dogs.
Oh, excellent. I've always considered the chorus in Gilbert and Sullivan to actually be another principal. Your role is vital to the whole production. Out of all the shows you performed, which would you say was your favourite, and why?
The Gondoliers.
Right.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I can remember I used to have to dance with Guy Matthews.
All right.
So I've got some lovely photographs of us dancing together. I just loved the vibrancy of the production. I loved all the dancing, because how I started in the theatre to begin with, or my first interest, was my mum thought I was very shy when I was 3 years old. I think she regretted that decision, and she put me to dancing lessons. Right. So I started off as a dancer, and I always promised my dad that I would end up being a dancer at Sadler's Wells. And I didn't end up being a dancer, but I did end up at Sadler's Wells. So
and probably dancing.
And dance there too, with the gondoliers. I just loved the music. So it was my introduction, like you with Pirates. It was the introduction for me, and it was just full of energy. So I particularly did like that one.
Unlike a major theatrical run in the West End, when you'd be performing the same play night after night, when on tour, you were probably performing different operas every night. Whilst this would give an element of variety, I suppose it could lead to the odd drop in concentration. Did you witness any amusing on-stage mishaps that you can share with us?
Yes. I remember one night.
I think says it all.
There was a couple. There was the time that Who Shot JR?
Right.
And obviously, you know, people, the audiences, what they must think, what we're doing in the dressing rooms. We'd be knitting, we'd be crocheting, we'd have a very small television there, and we were all watching to see who killed JR, and it was the Mikado. And there's the music, the dum 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 dum, and we're supposed to be in the wings, so the music was dum 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 dum, and we turned the tannoy down so that we could actually hear who shot JR. And then we just, we better turn the tannoy up. And and we were 3 levels up. And we turned the tannoy up and we had da-dum-bum-bum. And we looked at each other and all of us had to just race down the stairs. And we all sort of filtered on here, there and everywhere at different times. That didn't go down terribly well. And then there was another time, it was Mikado again. It must just have been something about that show.
Well, I suppose you do it did it so often, didn't you?
So often, and it's the longest as well, one of the longest. And you'd always have a matinee and an evening performance. But this was one of the last nights, I think, at Sadler's Wells. And we'd all the chorus had made this decision to have bubblegum in their mouth when they're facing John Eldon. And we'd all been prepping up this bubble gum, and so we all face him, so the audience don't see us at all, they just see John, and then we all blew these bubbles at the same time. So yeah, that was good fun.
Yes. And how did John react to that?
He corpsed. Yeah, he did corpse.
Yes. So, as we said, you left in 1981. So, what did you get up to after that?
I was in The Sound of Music at the Apollo Victoria.
Right.
Understudying Liesl and one of the nuns. Many might say not really an appropriate character for me to play, but I did that. Every night, 8 shows a week, and it was very different in those days to now. So anybody playing a part, they wouldn't all, nowadays, they wouldn't be on 8 days a week. As with the D'Oyly Carte as well, we didn't have microphones.
No.
We just got on with it, and our voices projected. Yes. So that's what I got up to. I married, and then children come along. And then I taught for a long time, so I had a theatre school, a singing school. But I did go back for a little while when I had child number 2. Went back into the theatre, worked with Cilla Black and did pantomimes. Yes. But then it became where you make the decision, children or your profession. And it's very difficult on Boxing Day to leave your children behind and go and do what you love. So you've got 2 loves there, and which one do you choose? Both my daughters as well have beautiful voices, outstanding voices. One both went to a theatre school in London. One pursued it for a lot longer, but now they've obviously both got their children, making me grandma, of course. And not the youngest in anything anymore.
But following on from the theatrical career, you've now moved into a career very different.
Very different. Quite similar for one aspect of what I do. I started off about 6 years ago becoming a celebrant, which is a person that can officiate at a funeral or a wedding or a naming ceremony or any kind of ceremony that anybody wants. It's not legal with the weddings at the moment, so they have to be married in a registry office for legal. And I really only wanted to do weddings and naming ceremonies. The one service I didn't want to do was funerals, because I thought it was very macabre, that it would be very depressing. But I soon realised, and especially when COVID hit, that my bread and butter would definitely be funerals. So I did my first funeral, and it sounds awful to say it, but when I came out of the funeral and I was asked the question, and how did you feel about that? My exact words was that it just was amazing, and I just knew that that was my calling. In the way that singing had been, I felt that this was a new way for me to explore and develop and use my writing skills and my projection. It's nice to know people, when they ask if I'll do their services for them, will we hear you in the church? And my comment always is, I used to be an opera singer. You will hear me. But now I've now gone into the funeral industry further, to the point of I'm on call through night time, so I bring the loved one into our care, and I arrange and I do all the administration, and then sometimes I'm the celebrant as well, so from start to finish. And very rewarding.
Because it's such an emotive time for the people that you're dealing with, isn't it? That, as you say, a rewarding experience for you to be able to bring some form of comfort to these people.
Absolutely. And it really is. And it's nice to, it's so interesting to find out about people's lives and then recreate this story about them, because rather than it sort of be A, B, C, D of their life, it is a story. And every story is a different story. And so it's bringing that story to life. And when you can go out of a chapel and somebody say, how well did you know my uncle? I didn't know that you knew my uncle. No, I didn't. But to be able to bring that person, their life back, and be able to tell family members things that they didn't even know. I mean, I'm even arranging my own, not that I'm going anywhere as long as I know at the moment, but because I'll tell my story, not somebody else.
So do you think that a 16-year-old Michelle going over to Manchester for an audition with the D'Oyly Carte had any idea that, as the years went by, this is what you would be doing?
Absolutely none whatsoever.
No.
The thought would have terrified me. And actually living above where I work as well, that would really terrify me. No, not at all. If you ask me, would I go back to being 16 and start again? Yes, I certainly would, with hindsight, and enjoy it even more.
Excellent. So really, as a final question, what would you say was your main memory of being with the D'Oyly Carte?
The touring, the travelling, the friendship. I do have one memory. I think we were in Sunderland, and there are some caves further, and there was a late night party as well, and I'll always remember that. And the amount of times that I've told my family about this amazing party that, of course, couldn't start until about midnight.
No.
Because we were in the theatre. Our lifestyle was so different. You know, if we had a dinner party, I had a dinner party in Norwich, and dinner parties wouldn't start till 12, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you'd go on, and then you'd sleep in when everybody else gets up for work. But that was amazing, because we had lamps, and then we'd sort of go into the sea and just paddle in the sea late at night, and all the lanterns were out. It was beautiful. That was a lovely memory. The audition in particular was very special, more special than I realised at the time.
Yes, you sound like a ballsy lady.
Yeah. I sometimes wish that it carries on as you get older, but life brushes the edges a little bit.
Yes,
So.
you start to worry about what people think, don't you?
You do.
Yes.
I'm still a little bit like it in what I do now. I don't like to... I like to give families the opportunity to have exactly what they want. and because you have only one shot. And it's the same with the theatre. The audience are going to see that show, so every single performance should be as though it's the very first performance you've ever done, because that person has paid the same money as the person the night before.
Yeah.
And so for families in the funeral industry, I'm a big believer in, right, let's just think slightly out of the box. How can we make this more bespoke? How can this really portray that person? So I have a lot of fun doing that. I particularly enjoy meeting people beforehand as well.
Yes.
That is very special. So I'm very privileged, and I feel I've had a lot of privileges in my life. So I'm just paying back some of my debts, I guess.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, gosh. And it's so strange because it's so rare that I get a chance to really... You try and talk with people about your days, and you to your children as well. But then it's like, yeah, okay, Mum, it's something that they really don't get.
No.
They don't, so you're sort of like, okay, that was then. So it's so nice to be able to revisit. I do remember the costumes I suppose there's the costumes, getting your wigs fitted and your costumes. And I remember that gondoliers, I had to wear size 3 shoes or 3.5, and I'm a size 4.5/5, but you went into that person's costume and you'd see people's names written in the costumes as well. And Iolanthe costumes, because they were relatively new.
Oh, yes.
Oh, but they used to hurt because there was wires, and the wires used to cut into your skin.
People say they were quite scratchy.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, I can remember quite often actually getting caught, and because I was ridiculously thin at the time then, but having to put plasters on underneath. So yeah, the costumes are they were just amazing, and having wigs, and because I had hair down here,
right,
and having to learn how to put my hair underneath, and then of course there was the Sheila who you mentioned for the wardrobe. But yeah, I remember Sheila very well. I remember going. The first things you have to do, you have to go to the Elephant and Castle for I think that was where the wardrobe was. Then you had to go somewhere in central London for your wigs. Yeah, I remember all of that. And then she had a new young lady, and we went... I never did anything on tour, as in I always would go back to a boyfriend or whatever, back in London, at the weekends when we finished on a Saturday night. And I decided this one weekend I was going to stay. And when you were in Scotland, we didn't perform on a Monday.
right.
And we went to... we went horse riding. I'd never horse ridden. Well, this horse just went straight for a wall. It just took me flying. I've never been so scared in my life. I've never been on a horse again since. I'd never been to a spa or on a sunbed, so that was my introduction to sunbeds. And then we did the forbidden thing of going ice skating, which of course is in your contract not to do.
All right.
I'd never ice skated before, so I was holding to the rim all the way around. But the young lady that I went with, she was used to ice skating, but she fell and had an accident and was taken to the hospital. So that put the end for me of like, maybe I won't do quite so many things in a weekend, and certainly not anything like ice skating. But she cut her head open. She was okay, but she was off for a few weeks.
So was that the reason for the clause in the contract, because of potential accidents?
And yes, exactly. But I hadn't realised that. You don't, again, at the age I was, you don't necessarily
You're
read
invincible,
everything.
aren't you?
Yeah. But I've never been that sort of adventurous to go far away from the sides anyway.
No.
Even when I've gone back now with grandchildren. So that was fun. The theatres, the feeling when you go on that stage, and you see just the old-fashioned theatres when the lights are there, and of course the orchestra. That was always exciting, listening to the orchestra as it was warming up, and then the introduction. That was, as they did their...
I still get a tingle whenever I hear a live orchestra. There's just something about it, isn't there?
It was just amazing. I mean, they obviously always had the opportunity with being in the Musicians' Union that they might take nights off and go and do Phantom or go and do something else. But again, you had that relationship with the orchestra as well. It was just so unique. The whole experience was so unique. You know, you'd finish on a Saturday night in one theatre and then you'd meet up again, lunchtime, in another theatre in another part of the country. What kind of job or profession would do that now? I mean, people complain or worry if they're touring for 6 or 7 weeks. Oh, I'm going on a tour. No, unless you've been with the D'Oyly Carte. Unless you've been with the D'Oyly Carte, you don't know anything about touring. No. Sadly, I missed out on Australia. They did that just before I was there. And that's the one place in the world I desperately want to go to. And they've done America as well. So some of the fans were just... And again, when you try to explain that, you try to explain to people and they really, unless they've been involved in it, it's very hard for them to understand it or even comprehend it. Unless, I suppose, the equivalent would be sort of football fans. But, I mean, these people would have things in their houses that Gilbert and Sullivan things. They'd have Gilbert and Sullivan door handles and all sorts of amazing things that I don't even know where they got them from. I know I used to collect the cigarette cards and somewhere along the lines they've gone. I would love to be able to do that again. So I've said I'm going to try looking. I'm converting one of my rooms into a music room now. I live in a flat above the business. And I'm converting what I call the spare room. But I'm going to turn that into my music room. So it'll have all posters up and record player and all the old pictures as well. And so I'm looking forward to getting that finished. Just so that I can go off and
relive
sometimes. Yes. I wish I had. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. I was so young to go into the D'Oyly Carte that really it came so, I suppose, so easy. It was the first audition that I'd done. And professional audition, and I got it, and it was... I wish that I knew what I know now, then, as we all do, and I'd have taken more advantage of it. And I certainly would have stayed until the very end. But then I went into the Sound of Music and did that. Completely different. Whereas people open doors to you when you're with the opera company, people just go out of them and they slam in your face. It's a completely different environment. So I really did want to sort of run back, but of course then they dissolved. So and then came along Children, and that was the end of that one. I went back for a little while and did pantomimes and things.
Oh no, you didn't.
I've actually just been writing. I'm finishing a course at the minute, and I should have finished it ages ago. It was before I became a celebrant, so I started in 2020. So I've got to get this certificate now. I've been doing the work. I've probably done 400 or 500 funerals, but I want the qualification. So I've just been writing about the person that gave me or sponsored me for my equity card when I went to the D'Oyly Carte, which I had to write 3 tributes. I did one for my dad and one for my mum and one for Roy Hood. And so I've just written my tribute for him. So it's part of my exam piece, but I'm sending it to his wife as well. So.
Oh, lovely.
So it was really nice to go down that memory lane as well, because he'd said go to a repertory company, get an equity card, and when I wrote back to him and said right, because we kept in touch, I was one of the Fagan's gang at the Leicester Haymarket, and we kept in touch, and I used to go and sit in the dressing room with him between shows, and we'd play cards and we'd share, as he liked my peanut butter sandwiches, whether he really did I don't know, and we'd just get on well, and he'd just give me tips, and of course old time music hall and things like that, so it was right up my street. So we kept in touch, and as soon as I got through the audition, contacted him, applied for my temporary, and he sponsored me. So he sponsored me, and right down, and then when I got married, he sent me a telegram. So I've written all that today, which has taken me down memory lane as well, which was quite nice. So,
Oh, lovely.
So it's been quite a memory lane day.
And it has been wonderful to talk to you, so thank you so much for sparing me the time today to have this chat about your life. So thank you.
Thank you very much.